Hello, everyone. Here we are with another episode. And today I have with me Whitney Andrus. So she is the founder of Whole Heart Health, which is a nonprofit dedicated to bringing age-appropriate, shame-free nutrition education into schools and communities. With over a decade of experience as a certified health and nutrition coach and a personal trainer, Whitney combines her professional expertise with her personal journey of overcoming toxic diet culture and healing her own relationship with food, fitness, and the body. Through Whole Heart Health, she and her team deliver interactive programs, community events, and family focused resources designed to empower children and families to build lifelong healthy habits. Whitney is passionate about creating a blue zone way of life where nutritious food, joyful movement, and authentic connection support long term well being. Her heart is for service combined with her ability to make health approachable and sustainable has made Whitney a trusted voice in the wellness space. Whitney, we're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. That was a mouthful. That was more a mouthful than I intended it to be.
It's all right. It was perfect. It was perfect, just as you were. Okay, so tell us what whole heart health is.
So, Whole Heart Health is just that. It's the nonprofit side of what I do. But I think it goes back, like, to know how it was kind of birthed and born is, I mean, I grew up kind of being told, like, hold your stomach in, just like you were meant to be like thin and not have a pooch, and heaven forbid you had curves. And so, like, I spent my high school days, I think I told somebody every day you could count on my meals were a 32-ounce Coke from McDonald's with a McGriddle and a hash brown, and then my next meal was a smoothie, and that was it, and then two spin classes a day. Like, I was determined because that was really nutritious. Because forget nutritious as long as you're skinny. And so really kind of how that manifested into when I got to college and discovered how much I really loved exploring new foods and everything. I was not just the freshman 15, I was the freshman 50, and I realized, like, I didn't really care, and I didn't know what that said about me, that I didn't care. I was like, I should care. Um, and a lot of people cared a lot more than I did. And but as time went on and I became an adult, a fully fledged adult, and was in the CrossFit when CrossFit first hit the scene, and I was really involved with the CrossFit gym, I did training with a class that came in at noon, and they were from a rehab down the street, a drug and alcohol rehab center. And it was like some of them would come to work out in their jeans and everything, and I loved it because they were coming for them. Like, it was like for their mental health. Like, it really wasn't their physical health. And I would hear these stories, and it just made me feel so good. And I was going through like a really not great exit from a relationship, we'll call it.
Mhm.
And um and it was just, I realized how much I needed it because I was so unhealthy, but I was having migraines and, like, just all the things that high stress environments cause in your body. And so I was on all these medications that doctors put me on, and it made me lose a lot of weight really quick. And people were like, "Oh my God, you look so great." And they were like complimenting my physical body in probably my most unhealthy headspace. And so that kind of being a trainer in that situation and really holding on to what that was really special. And then I went viral on, I think it was the chive. I think it was the chive. I think the chive was around then, on one of those kind of like Reddit style posts, because I played flag football and kickball in my town. Um and so I we had like a superhero game, so I was in my, like, football jersey with underoos on. They were Superman underoos over my yoga pants, but I wanted to go get it in my CrossFit before, and somebody had a little dog, and it was like propped up on a bar, and they posted it. Well, somebody grabbed it because nothing is really private on social media and you own none of it. Grabbed it, put it on there about the dog, but the comments were about the person in the background who happened to be yours truly. And so nobody really knew it was me. And had it not been, like, pointed out, like, by a friend who's like, "Oh my gosh, look, Lafayette made it to the chive," or whatever it was at the time, it probably still is that. the comments were awful. Like Superman lost its way. Like who is that like heavy man in the background? And I was like, this is a time that I felt amazing about myself.
Right.
And I went to my then friend, who I was helping with his dating profile, who became my husband. And I was like, he's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, and I just told him, and y'all, he laughed. Like, because to him, and it was hilarious looking back on it, but it was just what I needed to be like, why are you taking these comments seriously? I then wrote a post for like an online that was still blogging was like really big. And it was really like, if this is how we treat people for things you can see, imagine people struggling with like emotional things, emotional stress. Like, we're not allowed to be imperfect in any way online. And that was when the birth of Honor Your Body for What It Does, Not What It Looks Like kind of came to be, which I'm
Right.
really glad that it did, because over the next years, my body like rejected all things and I got to about 300 pounds, which I was like so beyond in love with myself at that weight for so because I was absolutely vital to my personal health, and I'm glad that I was. What ended up happening is, and so I found my way through medical weight loss, and I realized there was a huge need for people. And when I started working with people in the medical weight loss industry, I realized nobody gets to 300 pounds because of food and exercise. And so this advice that doctors give through, I genuinely believe, just a desire to keep it simple. I'm going to give like a lot of grace of just eat less and move more is such terrible advice and toxic. But like nobody gets there for food. There's socioeconomic factors. There's how were you raised? How do you feel about your body? What traumas are you carrying around? What is the weight it's just a physical representation of something. What's triggering you to eat the food? So I started Half Belly Health, which is kind of my for-profit coaching. And I really was like, this starts young. So how do I get into school? So for a year, I was in schools talking to kids, stuff like that. And I was like, this needs to scale. This is so needed. And I was working with food banks to be like, how do we bring things together in dignity and bringing stuff to the table, even in food deserts? And I was like, this needs to scale. And that's when we broke it off into a nonprofit because it needed to scale. And it's been such a fulfilling journey to work with places like the Baton Rouge Food Bank to bring like peanut butter recipes that aren't peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, that are like peanut pad thai with like ramen noodles and chicken, where people are like, I can't believe you're like telling people to eat this. Sometimes it's people's only option. And like we don't realize how what a privilege it is to have a body that you can move in, to be sore after a workout, what a privilege it is to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. And so, really, kind of, um, what a privilege it is to have a filter of discernment for what's for me and not. So, really, that's my goal, is to go into classrooms and talk with these kids about how to create the filter of like what's for me and what's not. I don't need to consume everything that I see online because it's going to dictate what's on my plate, but also to go into these food deserts and to provide solutions and levels of discernment and just dignity for people to hopefully kind of break that cycle.
Yeah. No, I love that. And look, it starts with kids. Because if you think about it, that's the habits that we create. If you go back to even being in your own childhood, my mom cooked macaroni and cheese every night. Why? Because that was the heart of my soul. Like that was my favorite food and that's what I wanted. And it was like later it was, the pork and beans and the macaroni and cheese and I mixed the two and I was like, it's the best meal ever. Well, then I gained the weight and that was not appeasing in the dating world. It wasn't appeasing to the eye. And I love the fact that you also said where, even when you were in your highest of weight, it was the time where you were the happiest and most in love with yourself.
Right. And I do want to say I am thrilled with myself now. Like I am in love with myself, but it wasn't because of the weight. Like I'm always grateful that like I fell in love with myself and that never changed because of the scale or
Yeah.
because of how much excess weight I was carrying. Like it just because it was like true joy. Like it was true honor. It was truly honoring my body for what it did and not what it looked like.
And that's exactly what you're doing now, right? But that was the whole purpose. I remember you and I having that conversation. That was where you moved into becoming a personal trainer and, creating Half Belly Health. And what was the whole name? Go through what the whole name was of Half.
Oh, so like it came half belly because literally I was working with people with a half a belly. And then I realized those people with a full belly have the same issue. But it came to be so half belly health and whole heart health come from the idea that like this whole toxic thing that you have to have 100% every single day is like so bizarre to me. I'm like, if I give you 100%, I definitely don't have 100% here and I don't. So like if you just show up half-ass with a whole heart, like I promise you're gonna make progress. But I didn't, I wanted my mama to stay proud of me. So that I started using half peach because that was the emoji for a butt. And so when it came to name the nonprofit, it just made sense to be the whole heart side of it because it really is like going into things with a whole heart, like I just think equals joy, and joy is the cornerstone to health.
Well, intention is everything. That's what I stand on. That's a premise that I stand on for everything. And if you're one of my best friends, if you're a client, or if you're my partner, he hears it all the time. Intention is everything. What are you putting into it? If we cannot do 100%, 1000%, we cannot do 100%. If I give, just like you said, if I give 100% to somebody, then I've got nothing left to give over here. If I start every morning at 100%, I need to dictate where my percentages go so that I've got enough left at the end of the day to still care for myself. I start with myself, I end with myself because that's my rest and digest, if you will, to get me out of that fight and flight response.
Well, and I think of how many times, like in work and everything, it was like, give it your all, give it, show up with everything or don't show up at all. And I'm like, now people aren't showing up. And like, I think one of the biggest lies we've ever told is consistency looks like a cup full all the time. Like, there's a diagram out there, but really consistency means showing up at 1%, showing up at 3%, showing up at like 4%. Like, my phone works whether it's fully charged or not. It's when I let it die that it stops working. But it shows up for me at 5%, just as it does as 100%. It does not change the function of it. And it's like, so if your purpose is to show up and to move forward, like, dude, I just tell people, like, just show up. Like, don't show up for me either. Show up for yourself. Show up for whatever it is that you want. And I think that's always like, even so I went and talked to a softball team through Whole Heart Health the other day. And one of the things I told them, I was like, I want you to build habits for the field that can translate into life. Because I think it's like you have to have a bigger goal than just like, I want to look like this. Like, center your goal on like achieving something. And I promise you that 5%, that 2%, that whatever, if it happens every day, shows up. And like, look, if there's a day that you're like, I didn't have anything to show up with, show up again the next day. Like, pick it back up. Like, its intention and purpose will always, always equate to like long-term results and success.
Well, 100%. Well, it's also give it your best, right? If your best is only 40% today, then do 40%. Nobody's
Yeah.
asking you for 100. And if they are, fuck them. Like they don't,
I can't say that to kids though in classrooms. It
you
would be hard.
cannot say that to kids, but I don't work with kids. I work with adults.
Well, and I think that's the other thing, but also giving parents stuff to talk to their kids about, right? Because I think about like my mom legitimately did her best with her insecurities when everything. So like she gave me everything and I'm so grateful for that. But like nobody's like talking about like how do we talk to kids about this? There is so much information on how to parent your kids. And I think that's the other side of it is giving parents the tools and the vocabulary to when you're talking to a 4-year-old, if you say eat your vegetables, is already gone. A 17-year-old is already gone. But if you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, do you know how this is grown? Like, do you know what this comes from? Do you know what this does? It's red. Can you find a red food? They're more likely to be like, okay, maybe I'll try it, like, And that's really the goal. It's just like, okay, cool. And like giving them the tools to talk about it. Because like if we talk to our kids as parents from a perspective of like give it your best, which may not be 100% today, imagine the generations that would come up. Like across the board.
Well, how much trauma would we be avoiding?
So much.
Because
So much.
there's diet culture trauma, there's food culture trauma, there's society trauma because we're supposed to look and live a certain way. And here's the thing, here's where my trauma, because and for those of you that don't know, I am a trauma healer. And so on the trauma healing side of what I do, it's who taught you these things, because
Yeah.
it might be where we said something. Kids are always watching, they're not listening, they're watching. So if you're showing up in that aspect and you're doing your best, they're going to do their best. But if they're watching you skirt the system, cheat the system, my kids will ask me whenever I do step on the scale, well, what's it say, mom? What's it looking like? Why do you look at yourself in the mirror? And I'm like, because not because I hate myself or because I'm trying to hate myself into a body that I want. I'm over here really in a space of like, what's changing? Our bodies are such fascinating things. They change day to day. Are we paying attention to those changes? Are we paying attention to how we feel? Where's our cortisol? All those things. Kids.
Well, and also like I think there's this myth that like if you're in love with yourself that you're not allowed to change it. And it's like I think that was something that like when I was really kind of I'll say my most, it's not my most recent health thing is kind of trying to not be anemic, but that's a whole other. But like when I was like in larger body, simultaneously what was happened was like that was when Adele lost all the weight and like her fans ripped her apart for like changing her body. And it's like, okay, so I'm too fat for you, but then I can be too skinny for you. And you're worried about my health, but then you're worried about my health that I'm too thin. And it's just like, can we just get away from it being what the body looks like? Because like I can be taking care of myself and I can like genuinely and if you're not in love with yourself in whatever body you're in, I always say get to a place of neutrality. Stop attaching emotion to it. Like get to a place of neutrality. But like that doesn't mean that I can't work on things. Like for me, I knew that my larger body was indicative of like the pain that I felt in my ankles. It was indicative of like how I was sleeping at night. It was just like the larger body was a symptom of something going on. And I knew that like when I addressed what was going on, that symptom in theory will go away. So like if we can just it doesn't mean that like I don't measure things or there's not a metric or there's not something that I'm looking at like to be like, okay, what would this look like? So my biggest thing is like I want to ride 100 miles or I'm about 2 weeks away from a yoga certification, like just because why not? But it's like I knew like what will that look like? What will that look like in my time? What will that look like to my family? What will that look like to my energy? How will my body change? That was really important for me to wrap my head around because I knew that because I wasn't lifting as much, my muscle mass might drop.
Mhm.
It's okay to look at like what's going to happen. And is this a cost worth paying? And for me, it was like, hell yeah. But like, I think we put a lot of emphasis on like, okay, let me change my body. And that must be the only reason that somebody's like weighing themselves. No, my body's fascinating. I want to know how things affect it. Because if I know as a professional in the industry too, I can translate that information to other people.
In a
Like,
way that they can better understand, and then they can also be able to do their things. Look, I'm into this whole body positivity is just bullshit type thing. We do not preach that, teach that, nothing, because it's not, you're not going to, you can't, you can love yourself into a body that you desire. And that's exactly what you did, right? You got to a place of fully loving yourself, and then you gave it the tools to make it a healthier space to live in. But you cannot hate your body into whatever it is that you want. I've met bodybuilders, and myself included in that space, where I was at stage ready and they're like, "Oh my God, you must feel amazing." I'm like, "No, bro, I'm dying on the inside." I
well,
am
and
hurting.
That's kind of how I felt when I think of all the times that people are like, "Oh my gosh, you look great." And I'm like, "Thanks. I feel terrible."
Share with us some of the tips that you give kids whenever it comes to teaching them more health conscious foods, atmospheres, environments, thoughts, different things.
So one of the things that I play on a lot is that kids are so curious to learn. They want to go home and they want to be like, "Mom, you know what I learned today?" And I'm like, mm. My favorite one from a young age is I think we can all agree that the food pyramid is it's BS.
Mm-hmm.
The one that the government put out. I mean, from like across the board. So one of the things I did one time was like, I was like, we're gonna rethink the food pyramid because my kid came home and was like, let me tell you about the food pyramid. I should be eating all this bread. And I'm like, cool, cool, cool. Does the bread like, do you feel better when you eat that much bread? Like, like let's acknowledge, I want you to be the evaluator of your own body, right? Like, I think that's one thing that we don't understand as adults is like, do we know what hungry feels like? Do we know when we feel the best? So I redid the food pyramid, and on the base, I always tell people there's primary food and secondary food. So it's like the first thing I teach kids. And I'm like, what do you think primary food is? And there's a variety of answers. 9 times out of 10, they tell me a specific food, like pizza, like chicken nuggets, like whatever. Depends on the age group. If it's teenagers, they're like vegetables, like, and they're like rolling their eyes. And I'm like, so primary food is nothing on your plate. It's your social media feed. It's the podcast you're listening to. It's the videos you're listening to. It's the friends you hang out with. It's the TV shows you're watching. It's the music you listen to. It's all the things that you decide to like consume and make part of your life. And it will dictate your secondary food, which is what is actually on your plate. So that's always the first thing I teach people because it goes to the why we're consuming stuff and then it goes to the food pyramid. So on the base of the food pyramid, it's like go get some sunshine. From a very like technical standpoint, it's the best way to get vitamin D. Like your body loves it. You're going to get more than you will from a supplement. Um, and then it says movement and it has like a little weight on my pyramid like a barbell or like dumbbell, but it doesn't. I always tell people that's not what it has to look like. Movement could be going to play tag with your friends. It could be having a dance party in the kitchen after dinner. It could be let me build an obstacle course. I mean, think of all the things. As an adult, it could be your favorite workout from a gym traditionally to like I'm gonna go outside and play with my chickens. um, but I think that doing that, and then it has the group of kids that you hang out with. Like, I want kids to understand that, like, their words have power in how people consume them, but also, like, I don't have to consume all the words, and I'm going to choose very wisely who my community is and how I hang out with them. Um, so yeah, so it's real, and sleep. There's always a sleep mask on there because especially teens, they're like, I don't want to sleep. And I'm like, that is when your body resets. That is when you develop all these things. So that's like the base of the consumption food/food pyramid. And then it goes into prioritize protein and produce, you know, um, fill in with like fats, and choose like consume sparingly. Like there's an ice cream cone at the top of my pyramid because it's like I don't want you to think that you can't ever do this, but it should not. Like bread and all those things are things that are like at the top. Like your body doesn't really need a lot of them. And then on the outskirts is a soda can and TV and it says consume sparingly. But for adults, when I do it for them, it's like a wine bottle. So when I'm talking to like because I just think that people don't recognize like and I don't want it to be something that shames like let me cut everything all at once. Ideally, we would all be just eating protein and produce and whole grains from a nutrition standpoint. Um, I don't know that that's reality. And if you try to get a kid there all at once and be like easy mac bad, they're gonna revolt and they've already cut you out. Furthermore, I don't think it's bad. It's just fun, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. And so it's really kind of giving them the tools that if they understand that, that I know it's kind of nefarious. I know they're going to take it to the adults and tell their parents about it. Like,
Oh, they do. They
yeah.
do. Just in case anybody knew, Whitney has come to my school with my kids. Our kids go to the same school, and she is way better with kids. That's why I work with adults. But she tells my kids have come home. Let me tell you what Miss Whitney said. And I'm like, mommy's a nutritionist. You don't listen to me. But my kids, I will tell you, teachers have been like, your kids always have the healthiest food. And I'm like, yes, but on Fridays, you will see a snack box that's full of junk.
I just So one of the things as a parent, I'll say this, it has been a game changer in grocery shopping and to make sure that my kid is eating food. So like our kids, I genuinely think most kids are picky eaters. I think because they don't understand. They're scared of new things. It is adults are terrified of new things. But we'll go to the grocery store, especially if they have a tiny cart, and I'll say, once they understood what it is, pick two things from the ground because that's fun. That's a fun way to word it. I want you to pick two things from the ground, one protein, and because she knows what a protein is, which builds muscles, and I use like Legos and stuff, one protein and one fun food. And this is the thing, as long as it fits those categories, I can't say no. Never fails. Her protein is some form of chicken nuggets. Never fails. One time it's been like pepperoni, but like it's always some form of chicken nuggets. And we kind of look at them like, okay, let's make sure this chicken nuggets is pretty much chicken, right? Like
Right?
we
Yes.
have we evaluate it. But like one, I know she's picked out two produces that she will consume. And then the fun food I don't argue about. So she feels like, okay. And sometimes the fun food is like really fueling. Like it's like, oh, she just picked out like one time it was a mango and she came up and she's like, mango, 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 you know? Like, so it's like it's a really fueling food. And it allows me to have conversations with her. So like if we cook something and she's like, I don't like it, or whatever the protein is, it's cool, go make your protein. Now she's old enough that she can work an air fryer and stuff, but what that allows me to do, especially if she notices her food on the plate, is like I had a hand in preparing this.
Mhm.
Like and giving them that sense of autonomy. So now they're learning how to build a plate, how I worked it into a recipe, what I did. I'm using it. I honor their choices.
Yeah.
And it's just a small way that I think has been like game changing for us. And that's not to say my kid, we've had to really kind of, I'll say, crack the whip this year on, look, we're not cooking two meals. We're going to try things. I will work really hard not to put things on your plate that I knowingly know you just are disgusting. But I'm
Yeah.
not cooking two meals. So if it means that like, look, you don't like the ground beef mixed with this, then maybe you get it deconstructed, but you got to eat the food. Like we got to fuel your body.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Look, my kids, and I'm that type of mom where it's if we've done really, let's say, quote unquote good, I don't look at food as a reward or not. All right, it's not punishment, it's not a reward. We don't put that emotion into food, and we don't create that kind of relationship with it. It's not here for comfort. And I will say this, like my clients, even whenever they're struggling with cravings, whether it's sugar cravings or salty cravings, we dive deeper into those roots, right? Where are you missing intimacy and connection and closeness? Because if you're craving sweet things, it means you're looking for intimacy, connection, and closeness in whatever the thing is. Kids are the same way.
I am so glad that you said, like, I think our cravings tell us so much about where we are. It could be something from craving intimacy or community or whatever. Like, I think about whenever I'm really craving like mashed potatoes, which is a weird thing, but like it's my favorite food. And if I address why, it's not because I'm just like, oh my gosh, they taste so good. Because that is something that I can remember being at the dinner table and us all liking. Like it just, and so I think like there's gonna, especially both of us live in Louisiana, but I think the world over, there is a level of emotional, nostalgic impact for food. And I think it can be really healthy to lean into that if you understand why. But
Mm,
don't create other attachments to it from like, oh, it's a bad day, So ice cream is how I'm going to cheer myself up. That, I mean, like, I think we hear that too with like alcohol a lot is like, oh man, I've earned this margarita. It's just been a bad day. I need this margarita. And I'm like, you're starting to go down a slippery slope of what you tell your brain. And
Oh,
so it's
me, I can turn it off.
and it's just like, so it's like, let's not create it with kids too, right? Like, so we think it's just all benign. And it's like, I just, I know I tell people all the time, like, I always feel weird when I talk to parents because I'm like, look, I'm saving for two things for my kids, their college education and the obvious therapy I'm going to put them in it one day. Like, we're all just doing the best we can. And
Mm.
I don't do things perfectly. I have one daughter who she had to make weight for something and I didn't know. And she was like, her, she got the advice from an adult, from a professional in her field to just like, don't worry about it. It's only like 2% of her body weight to go do something. And I'm not going to say what it was because that'll give away a lot. But, and it was like, just take, laxatives for
Mm.
3 days before. Keep in mind, she had to go do like heavy duty outside, like training. And I'm like, and so when I found out about this, it was like everything in my power not to be like march up in an office and be like, who tells like people this? And but it's not abnormal. I mean, I went and spoke to a wrestling team and one of the reasons they brought me in is like how do you make weight in healthy ways? Like there's plenty of areas where there's weigh-ins and our kids are being subject to this. So it's like whether it be wrestling, powerlifting, the military requires it. Some don't talk to me about dance teams requiring it because I think it's tacky and we won't even go there. But there are plenty of places where weight and body weight classifies you, we'll say
Yeah.
and how they use you. And I think that if your kid is in something like that, how you talk to them about what that means and how to make a weight class in a healthy way, it just means that your training doesn't end in the gym. It may exist in the kitchen too. And how do you handle that in a way that doesn't um, screw up your relationship with food and your own self worth? And I think as parents, I was never taught. I mean, there's no rule book on anything in parenting, but we're certainly never taught how to talk to our kids about that.
Yeah. No, 100%. And the only reason that I did was because I know the struggles that I went through. You know, being the bigger kid growing up, I was a bit chunkier and I wasn't like way out there, but I was chunkier. And I mean, I got boobs at such a young age. Like I had to start wearing bras and everything else. My hormones were shifting so fast. And I struggled with hormones even growing up, going through high school, everything else. Hormones was the name of the game. And it was a battle constantly. And so, but even in my bodybuilding days, it was how are we gonna make weight? And then if you didn't make weight, with your coach, it depends on like, and it would be like a hormone thing. You'd have to go ahead and start explaining. Okay, let me explain. I've done everything to the T, and I can honestly say I've never cheated on any of my diets. That has never been me. And I know that some people, that's not the case. They have, and like it gets the best of you. And look, there is no perfection. There is no perfection. I don't know, like it never bothered me. The food never bothered me, even going through bodybuilding. What bothered me was the pressure I was putting myself under. I need to be here. I am not here. These women are here, and I'm down here. And every single time, all of my feedback was, well, you need to be bigger. Coach was like, all right, let's go ahead, let's do the next thing. And it's like, good. I'm okay letting my body naturally do its things.
And I think that's really the thing is like, we are so different. One of the questions I got from a parent the other day when it comes to like body and like all this stuff is my kids noticing that like the sizes on kids' clothes are kind of like arranged around age. And it's like 3, 4, 5, 6, like I think like 9, 10, whatever. And she's like, so she is I think 8 and doesn't understand why her clothes say age 9, 10. And I was like, so like it was like, how do we get the tools? And like, let's look at the history of how kids' clothing sizes are done. And like, we all grow differently. And it's one of those things that it's just, I think it goes back to the body positivity conversation. Is like, it's not just about being like, oh my God, I love my body and it's the best. Because I think that that can swing to like where we're ignoring big things,
Mm.
like hands down, but it's really about understanding that like our bodies grow in different ways. So like my youngest is kind of hitting that age of like puberty, and we've noticed like, I mean, look, so I'm gonna hesitate to say this, so I'm just gonna say internet, don't judge me. But like one of the things is like, I guess my husband watched South Park, and like there's somebody on there is like, oh, filling out quite nicely, you know? And so like we always say that, but like before a girl hits puberty, a lot of times her body kind of like thickens up, if you
Yep.
will. Like it gets a little puffy because it takes a lot of energy
To
for the
build.
body to do that. Like, and fat, I tell people fat is like an energy source, like period. So like, can we stop looking like calories, a measure of energy? Fat is an energy source on your body. It's an insulation source on your body. Muscle, it's a power source on your body. Your bones, like all of these stuff, like, can we just start talking about what they do? And I think that goes back to when I talk to kids, have them understand how something serves their body. Like, what's its purpose? Because kids are curious. Lean into the fact that they are curious. And if they can understand what a food does in their body, and not from a thing of like, it does nothing. A donut does something. It gives you energy really, really fast. Period. It does something. But like, it's not going to last. So like my kid loves cereal in the morning. And I told her one time, like, okay, well, she'd come and be like, they don't eat till like almost noon. And when you go to school and you're done eating breakfast and we leave the house at 7:30, so she's eating breakfast at like 7. 7 to noon is a big stretch of time where you've been using your brain. They have PE before. I just happen to know her schedule. But like, it's like, yeah, I bet you are hungry by the time because you're eating cereal and your snack that you're insisting on bringing is chips. Those are all really quick energy sources.
Yeah.
So how do we make that energy last longer? And then it was like, oh, well, I really like sausage. So it's like, cool, let's get a sausage so you can enjoy it with your cereal. So it's still that same adult concept of eat what you want, add what you need, but eating what you want doesn't mean eating as much as you want. Because
Hmm.
your body, that's when you're going to start to notice like afternoon slumps. Like you're going to notice other things. So like let's not ignore, like in the name of positivity, let's not ignore like the very real negative impacts that like some of that can have on our body. But I don't know how I got there, but that's my soapbox. Thank you. I'll step off.
I appreciated your soapbox. Well, it's the same thing, with my kids. And my kids too. They love cereal. They love we do these healthier type Pop-Tarts or whatever they are. Love those little pastries. And I'm like, cool.
I
I
love Pop Tarts one.
look,
Strawberry Pop Tart.
blueberry with the frosting.
I
But
haven't had one in forever, and now I'm like, oh yeah.
so on a Pop-Tart note for a second, in case you guys didn't know this, Fantastic Four came out with a new Pop-Tart and they brought back the blue raspberry Pop-Tarts. I remember as a kid, they had the blue raspberry Pop-Tarts. It was the icing on there and they had sprinkles. And when you stick it in the Pop-Tart in the toaster, the sprinkles would change colors because it would melt the things and it would make it pretty. So I remember I emailed Kellogg's way back when I was a kid and like, yes, we had email. Okay. So I emailed them and I told them, I found their email online and I was like, look, you need to bring back these blue raspberry Pop Tarts. And they were like, we love that you have loved one of our limited selection Pop Tarts, but we're going to have to ask that at this moment, please find another favorite because we're not bringing it back. And I was so devastated. I was like, these people hate me.
It was like a personal thing
It
against you.
was, but they
I
brought them back in Fantastic Four. So,
but I think that's the thing. Like, what a fun story is that? And imagine, like, I think of everybody. Imagine if we called Pop Tarts bad. I think that's the other thing is like, I really try to refer to food as fun or fueling. And it's like, imagine that fun story that's like, and I told you, and you have a healthy relationship with food now. If I was like, your Pop Tart is bad, does that make my whole memory bad? Does that make that story bad?
It
Like how we
might.
do it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like, you can't convince me that Friday donut dates with my daughter are bad because of donuts. Like, no. Like, I posted a thing one time, like, I don't know. We were running around town, and Cane's is a staple of ours here. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, Cane's is like one of our favorite places because I can split the meal with my kid because we don't eat it all. And like, we can toast chicken fingers. Like, legit, toasting our chicken fingers is one of my favorite things. And knowing, like, and I think that's my thing is like everything, you have to decide, like, if something isn't fueling your body, is it fueling my soul? And how? Because not everything that fuels our soul is a healthy fueling. It might be something that we need to, you know, we might be trying to put diesel in like a gasoline tank, and it's like that doesn't work. So maybe we need to address it. And that's where I think you come in as like a trauma healer. It's like, nope, that's just kind of masking it down. So it's
Yeah.
probably, but I think you have to deal with the trauma before you deal with the like mask. Because once
Yes.
you deal with the trauma, there's no need for the mask.
See, I have a thing in my program where it's if you're feeling this, eat this. Because typically we tend to, if we're feeling a certain way, we're going to eat a certain way. Food, how we feel dictates what we eat, and then what we eat dictates how we feel. And it's just a never ending loop. But if we go back to if we're searching for, that closeness, that craving, what are we craving? And it could be craving anything. You're not necessarily just craving closeness and intimacy and connection. Maybe you're just craving a conversation. So when you're chewing and you're munching, you're mulling on something. If it's salty, and like I get clients who are like, I love to chew on things, and I'm like, what kind of frustrations and resentments you holding on to, boo boo? Like, why? And sometimes that's where it comes in. It's like, but I'm harboring back something because I don't feel safe to say it.
So I have to tell you, okay, so my husband is very like polar opposite than me. I'm looking up something, so I'm looking up something because I want to share it. And so his way of like telling me like I hear you, I don't have an interest in what you have an interest in. I don't really care what I'm eating, like all this stuff, like there's no issues around it, whatever. But when he's on the road, he'll send me like articles or thing he found that he's like, I think you'd find this interesting. It's like the way he loves me, right? He sends me like random thing. And one day for he sent me this thing and he's like, have you ever heard of the Japanese term? It's called kuchi sabishi. And it's a loneliness of the mouth. So people who just eat because their mouth is lonely.
That's so,
And it describes the feeling of wanting to eat something even when you're physically not hungry, often due to boredom or desire for comfort. But so like it really means lonely mouth or eating when not hungry because your mouth feels lonely. It is one of my, I can never pronounce it, so I always have to like look at Kuchi Sabishi. And I'm like, this is, I have used that so many times because I think we all feel it, right? So it's like, okay, well, let's deal with the boredom, and I think it's never too young to teach a kid that either, but they're not going to understand, oh, are you just bored or are you hungry? No, I'm really hungry. How do you know? Like you don't want to like inquire, but teaching them to like recognize their own signals. So like, hey, it's really cool when my kid was like, I'm so hungry by 10 o'clock. Instead of being like, yeah, I bet you are because of your cereal. I'm like, cool. What are you eating? And she's like, oh, well, I'm eating cereal and then I have my snack. Cool. What's your snack? And oh, I really love the little tiny Pringles things. And I'm like, awesome. So, what kind of energy are those? Oh, that's like, and then she has to go back to like things we talked. Oh, that's quick energy. I'm like, cool. What are some long energy things? Well, I would need to do like fiber or produce, but like I can't pack that in my book sack. And I'm like, yeah, but I bet I could make it last longer if I did this. So like what she's doing, and again, she's old enough to do this, but talking through it with your kids and getting them there, I think goes to the am I bored or am I hungry? You know? Without kind of being like, you're not hungry, you're just bored. Because if you say that, now all of a sudden they're taught not to trust their body.
yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And look, I'm guilty of that at times because that would be me who says, well, what are you eating? Well, maybe let's not eat that. Let's eat something a little bit different.
Right. I'm like, it goes to like, look, adults are no differently. You know, have you ever like wanted something from an adult and you're like, how do I make it their idea?
Oh, yes. I
How do I
think,
make it their idea? You
I
know,
think
like that sneaky. Yeah. So it's like, look, we're all just giant kids. So I always tell people, I mean, you've been to one of my presentations where I talk about like I use kinetic sand in the foam balls and I use like I don't know if I did the washcloth in the water or whatever with the heart and stuff. Look, when you break it down for adults like that, they're just like, oh. Or like my favorite thing is like having somebody like unroll a toilet paper roll really, really, really fast
yep.
or
Oh,
somebody that takes off the things one at a time because what it demonstrates is like when you take it off really fast it's all still connected and when you try to roll it back up usually it expands, right? You're carrying more, either you're carrying more with you, whether it be excess weight, guilt, shame of like a failed diet or whatever.
mhm.
And so it's like that idea of like quick fixes and like to think kids aren't learning about quick fixes and how to do something fast is like you're that's not just reserved adult problem. But if you take off toilet paper one at a time, you haven't lost anything. You've released it. It's gone.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
can't put it back on.
and I think when people see those visual things, we all learn, we all just have big child brains. I'm just convinced of it. So like that's one of my things and where I always tell people like whole heart health was just my mission of like half belly health. It's written in front of me is we're on a mission to empower individuals with compassionate, shame-free health coaching that fosters sustainable relationship with food, movement, and community. It's the same mission for whole heart health. I just think it addresses it in a way that feels foundational to me
Yeah.
and means one on my superpowers to be able to work with kids better and relate to them. But also, I think I always tell people like my goal is to put my for-profit business out of business. Like you don't need me anymore because we have a healthy relationship with food. You're not going to chat GPT to be like, I need to lose 10 pounds, build me a meal plan. That, I mean, like, I always tell people, like, I want you to hire me to fire me
Yeah.
because, like, you don't need me. We're just lonely. Like kids are too, and they don't know where to go to ask questions. So I think the best thing we can do as adults is be that place for them to ask questions. And if our initial instinct is to be like, why are you asking me that? What's that? Of course it's not healthy. Then it's like there's power in a pause.
Hmm.
And there's power in just going and like looking it up online, right? Like we have like a magical pocket computer that doesn't always have the best information, but use it for good.
Yeah.
Phone a friend. Like get a
Yeah.
lifeline. And I think that's where I am really grateful for. I look at how many resources are out there for adults, and I'm like, some of them are really good, and some of them are just like, cool, cool, cool. You're just creating another dependence.
Yes.
Like, so how do we not do that? And how do we address like, you can be an adult in a food desert. Now what? I don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. There's not a grocery store within 3 miles of my house, or which is what classifies a food desert. All I have is the Dollar General. Okay, cool. Let's build something that tastes really good because let's not ignore that if the food tastes terrible, it's miserable. So how do we build something that tastes really good with like canned goods, shelf stable goods? Like how do we use that Easy Mac for power? You know, how do we make a can of chicken taste good? You know, like, and it's possible. Like,
Yeah, you did one on spam. I was like, nope, I'm out. I can't. I'm out.
look, and if full disclosure, like, was it my favorite way to make fried rice? Absolutely not. But was it good? Like, yeah. Like, it was edible. Like, we finished it, you know? My favorite, let me tell you, two favorite things to do with canned chicken are chicken enchiladas. And because you can use all shelf stable ingredients for that, chicken enchiladas or chicken pot pie. The chicken pot pie is fire. Like it is so good. But you have to like chicken pot pie
Yeah, I don't.
so like it wouldn't be fire. And that's the other thing to recognize, you know, like not everything is for you, right? Like
We
but
talked about
like
this in the beginning.
But like I think that's the thing of like recognizing like food desert is real. Like food insecurity is real and fed at the end of the day is best, but the hope is for our kids that they don't always live in food insecurity. So what are we doing to educate them on how food works in their body so when they're not in that position, hopefully, they know how to shop for themselves. Because usually what happens is you see a lot of kids that grow up in food insecurity, food becomes readily available to them, and it's just like, it's the same thing with money, right? If you grow up in poverty and then you get like, oh my gosh, you see a lot of people blow through money or there's a windfall. Um, and so it's like, how do we teach people healthy relationships when hopefully it is available? And if it never is available, to know like you can still not only eat to fuel your body, but also eat with dignity and something that you can be proud to put on the table for your family.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it goes back to what we said as far as we're empowering these kids to make healthier decisions so they're not putting emotional attachment into food.
Yeah.
That's it at the end.
Like and to ignore the emotions that go behind food, it's like we just can't ignore it. It exists. But if you're going to have emotions around it, I want it to be the most fulfilling emotion of joy and honor that you can have.
Yeah. Oh, girl, we own it today. This is good. This is good. All right. Well, we're definitely going to be bringing you back because we're going to be having some more conversations because this is important. So thank you so much for your time today. Tell everybody before we go, where can we find you? What you got for us? Tell us all the good deets.
Yeah, so you can find me on all the social media platforms. So Facebook and Instagram, Whole Heart Health. If you look that up, it's wholeheart.health is the Instagram thing, and that also happens to be the website is wholeheart.health. If you're just feeling like froggy and you want to see the inner workings of my life and the ridiculousness that I put out there across the board, on TikTok, I am half a wit. Um, because half wit was gone. Rude.
Damn.
I know. So half a wit. Um, and I mean, that's where I am. But I mean, I tell people like I'm an open book. If you want access, like I'm Whit Andrus on Instagram. Whole Heart Health is the nonprofit, and I just want to be a resource. And I'm always open if people are like, I got a question. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Like, I may not have the answer, but I'm so grateful to have people like you and other people who I'm like, this is not my question. Let me connect you with somebody that it is. I'll make that introduction. And that's always the goal.
love it. Love it. All right. Thank you for today. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Catch you on the flip side.